Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for the Wrestling Inc. AEW Dynamite After Show, and have we got a show for you? We've got Chris Jericho selling his soul. We've got MJF fulfilling a promise and a new world champion. But before we get into all of that, allow me to introduce the crew. I'm Jack Farmer, but I'm being joined by none other than the legendary referee, Jimmy Korderas, as well as the Spar with LaBar champion, Justin LaBar. Justin, how you feeling today?
Feeling good. Our Triple J week continues.
Triple J dominance. We're taking over. Jimmy, how are you feeling? I feel like it's been just a few days since we chatted.
Yeah, doesn't it? Guess who's back? Back again, Triple J. Tell a friend. Anyway, so.
Yes.
I'm continuing the karaoke thing from Monday night. What can I tell you?
Yeah, if you guys are missing Monday nights, you're missing just the best after show in the country. I mean, I don't know what other country, maybe they have better after shows in other countries. I don't know. But in America, here in the old US, you know what? Jimmy's here in the
North
America, actually the Northern Hemisphere. We don't do very good with geography here in the States. I was like, what's that big chunk of land called?
Canada.
We're driving north. We're coming up on a little town called Kenyatta.
Yeah.
Oh, we're off to a good start. Thank you to everyone in the chat, by the way. Dylan Matthews already with the super chat of the night, maybe. Triple J week greater than Shark week. I got to agree, I got to agree here.
Thank you, Dylan.
We got folks from the UK. I'll take that as a Tina from the UK. I'll take that as we're also the greatest after show in the UK. I think that's
in the world.
In the world.
There you go.
It is Triple J week, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday this week.
Yes. I was trying to be humble, but I think we can humbly say we're the greatest that's ever been assembled here. Let's get into some news. Yeah, thanks to everyone in the chat. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You know the deal.
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars. 5 stars. Let's talk a little bit about Vince McMahon. He was issued a grand jury subpoena and a search warrant. WWE revealed in their latest earnings report that executive chairman Vince McMahon was served with a search warrant and federal grand jury subpoena on July 17th. No charges have been filed against McMahon as of this writing. The details of the warrant and subpoena are currently unknown, although it has been publicized that there have been issues with McMahon and some allegations pertaining to some misconduct. Justin, this was news. There was investigations going on. That's nothing new, but the idea that there's been a grand jury subpoena filed and search warrants shows that maybe this isn't something that's over.
Yeah, it certainly seems like even as Vince has tried to stay more out of the public eye, even as much with this company in terms of not being at TV regularly anymore, and like the new Cody documentary, Vince was not interviewed in that, and the bad publicity is not going away. Obviously, last summer we know was the tip of the iceberg. He retired until he unretired at the start of this year. Then, of course, he announced the merger with Endeavor, WrestleMania weekend. He's tried to lay low, though otherwise, as much as Vince McMahon can lay low, I suppose. But this stuff's just not going away. I don't know if anything's going to ultimately happen to him. I'm not thinking that Vince McMahon's ever going to see like a day in like prison or anything, but it just doesn't seem like things are going to go away. Yeah, that's all I can really take from this, is that it's just things just will not die down as it relates to controversies around him.
Yeah, I think, Jimmy, you know better than I think anybody who Vince McMahon is, having met him in person. I've always said, maybe not always, but for a very long time now, I've said, never count out Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon's not going anywhere. Vince McMahon is going to, whatever the case is, whatever's happening, he's going to find a way to be around, win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, well, you said it, and he's a fighter. let's put it that way. He is a fighter. The only thing is, the choice of words that he made in his statement, and if I'm reading this correctly, he said, it's following the investigation. Where do I have it? I had it right here. He said throughout, I have always denied any intentional wrongdoing and continue to do so. I find that a curious choice of words, intentional wrongdoing. He's not saying that he didn't do anything wrong. He's just saying that if he did do something wrong, he was unaware of it. That's how it seems to me. So, that's Vince being Vince. And like you said, is he going to go away? I doubt it. In some form or fashion, Vince will always kind of be there. But at the same time, a lot of people are getting some joy out of this, the anti-Vincers, so to speak.
Right.
And that's wrong. If I can understand it from a personal feeling, let's look at it from a legal standpoint. I hate to be a fence sitter and say wait and see, but wait and see what happens.
I always like to say with things like this as well is I'm not saying whether something happened or didn't happen. I don't know, but I know people are looking into it. That's their job. It's not my job to figure that out. I'm going to let them do that. So I only speak to how we as fans will perceive things. And that means I don't think Vince is going anywhere. I think that's the long and the short of it. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think he's going to be here for a very long time. And frankly, if anyone has figured out how to clone themselves and be with us forever, I think it's going to be Vince McMahon. If he hasn't already become a cybernetic robot that will be with us forever. But one way or the other, I think Vince will be just fine on that. But someone who's going to be just fine is going to be the Elite. They talked about it on the show, but it's in the news section. We're going to talk about the news because I think there's some details that they didn't mention on the show. More news about their contracts in terms of lengths of the new deals. Fightful Select reports that one of the new contracts is said to run for, quote, at least 4 years. It's unknown if that's the case with all of the new agreements, however, and it is also unclear if the deals matched up, potentially creating a situation where the Elite's collective contracts wouldn't be up at the same time. AEW and the Elite were said to have reached these new deals over the past few weeks. In regards to WWE, it appears that while the promotion was interested in Omega, Page, and the Bucks, serious talks between the two sides never ended up occurring. Jimmy, I think this has got to be very good news for the Elite. I always say that I feel like in many ways, obviously they're the heart of AEW. And I think whether you like them or not, them leaving AEW would be just a cultural shot against them.
Absolutely. It would have been a massive blow to that company. Obviously, people talk about Cody and Cody's departure and going back to the WWE and how people perceive that. But can you imagine, like you said, the heart and soul, the diehard AEW faithful that buy into the Elite the way they do? If they had not re-signed, boy, it could have been a disaster, especially for a company like you said. Again, tonight was their 200th episode, and for all the successes that they're touting right now, how would they succeed going forward without their cornerstones? Let's put it that way. Yes, they've got some talented individuals there, but you're talking about guys who basically helped lay the groundwork for this company, and them not resigning would have been, like I said, a massive blow.
Yeah, I think of when TNA started losing guys like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels, and that group, and how it didn't feel the same after they left for a long time. It still doesn't feel quite like the same TNA. It's a great show, but it doesn't feel like the old TNA. It feels like that part of the company is now gone. Justin, this is a kind of probably a reach, but it's just something I was thinking. If they're all, it feels like, or it seems like they all have sort of worked together in bargaining their contracts. Is it possible that it's not obviously a union, but like, is there something to potentially wrestlers sticking together in groups like this and using their combined forces to leverage deals?
Well, it's a rare thing to happen. Obviously, the Click and Hall and Nash, they kind of were the most prominent examples of it in the modern era. You're never going to have, that's never going to be a widespread thing in wrestling, just because by the nature of wrestling, one guy always wants to, even if it's friendly, the egos are always, so you're not going to ever get a union. You're not going to ever get anybody who's going to stick together and all walk in the same direction. But I do think in rare cases, and this is a rare case, you have when you had the Bucks and Kenny, top talent in the company, but also with office responsibilities and recognitions and their titles. So they have a rare situation where they need to kind of stick together in certain ways. So I think this is obviously good for AEW. Commentary said it tonight. They put the elite in all elite wrestling. I mean, losing them, would be a huge blow. I have to think too, and I would assume that they had leverage on their side, they being the elite, for several reasons. One, Cody's not there, and there's a lot of fanfare right now about Cody and his story being told in the documentary, and the documentary very much talks about him starting AEW with those guys, and so it's out there in the front lines right now. So they have that leverage of you don't want to lose us to WWE. They also have the leverage of whatever behind closed doors has been said to Tony Khan in regard to the CM Punk situation. I don't know if I want to stay around here. If Punk's still, who knows? But I have to assume they have a lot of pieces that would appear to be leverage for them. So it seems like they played their cards. Good for them. I'd have to imagine they're getting paid more. That's how they got retained, is that they upped their take. And so good for them. Good for them that they have life after taking bumps, that presumably as long as the company still is going and growing, that they have employment beyond needing to take bumps. And that's not something many wrestlers can say, that they have a retirement plan that involves wrestling but involves them not having to bump every night. So this is a huge win for them, that they presumably, if it is for 4 years, they were going to finish out their in-ring careers at AEW, and like I said, probably consider to have life afterwards there. So this is a huge win for them.
Yeah, anytime the wrestlers get a win, I'm happy. 'Cause I always say the companies, they got their money, they're fine. So I like it when the wrestlers get money. I do want to mention Corey Pride had said they were never leaving. I just got to say, people said the same thing about Cody. So you never know when people may leave.
The wrestling business, and never say never in pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm. So I would definitely say I think it's very possible that I always believe too, like if WWE wants someone, and this isn't a shot at AEW, this is just the nature. I feel like if WWE wants somebody, you're very hard pressed for them not to get them, because I think they just have the money and the exposure, and they just have the resources available to them. So the fact that Tony Khan was able to keep the elite, I think, is a huge win, especially if WWE may have wanted them. So speaking of WWE and AEW and the pecking order there, for those of you who saw the American Nightmare Becoming Cody Rhodes documentary, you may have seen Triple H on there, who called AEW a, quote, secondary promotion. And Tony Khan responded to that and said, quote, "We certainly won't be the secondary promotion at All In. We are number one in the UK on TV, and with a record gate. I have a lot of respect for Cody. I know these weren't his words, to be fair, but we're not secondary in a lot of markets. For the first time in a long time, WWE has been secondary in a lot of markets. I'm proud of where we are at, and we're not taking a back seat to anybody." Justin, I believe this is the perfect response to that comment, but what do you think?
Well, first off, I mean, Tony Khan, if he's going to answer, which he was asked the question about it, so I guess you got to answer. You're not going to roll over and say, "Oh yeah, we're the secondary company." I mean, so I get he's going to defend and be prideful of his company. In terms of we're not second in certain, I don't know what metric he's speaking of. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's some metrics that he's out there that he can technically top. Maybe they tend to run a little bit smaller buildings, where WWE tends to run the arenas where like the pro hockey and basketball will run. AEW tends to run the arena where like the college runs. So you're just a tiny bit smaller. So maybe they're selling a better ratio of their buildings than I don't know. Be prideful of your company, of course. But I mean, but the reality is, and again, WWE's had a 70-year head start. You are secondary in terms of global recognition. It is definitely the most. It is the most thriving and place to make big money from top to bottom of the roster pro wrestling company that's not named WWE, that's been around since WCW. All right, you can be guys and girls up and down the card are making more money than anywhere else. Again, not WWE, and that's all great. But I mean, obviously, yeah. And in the grand scheme of things, I mean, they just announced WrestleMania this past year in LA, $215 million was generated of revenue because of the economic impact that WrestleMania weekend had. I mean, so, and again, 40-year head start with Mania, but yeah, it is. The funny thing is actually the context of what Triple H is talking about is something that I've said many a time, which that AEW does have to deal with right now in terms of trying to retain talent. And it was Triple H talking about, Cody grew up dreaming of being at WrestleMania, of being WWE World Champ. The talent right now, the boys and girls right now in the locker rooms, that would be the same thing for them. AEW's only been around for 4 years, so unless you're like 18 and just started watching wrestling when you're an adolescent, you grew up wanting to be at WrestleMania. You didn't grow up wanting to be at Double or Nothing because there was, so that is something that it is a reality, and that's what Triple H is talking about. They're the company that has that kind of history and lineage. AEW's world title has 4 years of history and lineage, so it is what it is. It makes for fun fodder for us to talk about. We win the most out of all of this.
Yes.
But it's funny because the context of what Triple H is saying is something that I constantly say that AEW is going to have to deal with for a little bit longer until they are more established. If they do a show in Wembley every year where they can sell 60,000 tickets, okay, now you might start having talent coming up as they grow up that want to go do the Wembley show. So it evens the playing field. But you are secondary no matter how you want, if nothing else, because history is not on your side.
Yeah, I agree completely. And anyone who has never been to a WrestleMania, go to WrestleMania, and you'll see you'll see just how incredible it is, especially this year when they were in LA. And look, there's a lot of stuff going on in LA every single day. There's a ton of things. And to see what WrestleMania did in a place where there's always stuff going on and still was this massive thing that took over the city, that is absolutely incredible. And to Justin's point, yeah, there's things that are just baked into people's brains about where they're going to want to be and what they're going to want to do. It doesn't matter how big the XFL gets, for instance. People want to be in the NFL growing up. Even if the XFL got just as big as the NFL, there's going to be 20 years of people who said, I want to be in the Super Bowl. That said, I don't think that I'm not implying that AEW is the bigger of the two, or it's the number one company, Jimmy. But what I like is the way Tony Khan responded. It felt like he never said that they were the biggest company. He never said that anything negative necessarily about WWE, but he just said, look, these are our strengths. We got this big show coming up. We're doing well here and here. I thought it was a very well politically done answer, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying, but at the same time, he was choosing his words very carefully. And one thing, yes, I get it. Triple H took that little jab at him by saying, a secondary company is, but at the same time, and I hate to put it this way, in a sense, he's not wrong. Like Justin said, the number one company in the world right now, overall, is the WWE. And if you look at their numbers, they're doing some massive business right now as well. And yes, you can tout the Wembley show, but this is the first time ever going there. So like Justin said, you're going to have to see how well they do when they come back. As we see from an attendance standpoint, most of the places that AEW goes to, the numbers are stagnant. They're not growing their attendance numbers, other than, like you said, the Wembley show and maybe some certain television markets. But at the same time, they haven't reached the level. And yes, they're a young company, and hopefully they will grow and be very competitive to the WWE and push them harder. They've already pushed them a little bit. They've got them, going, hey, maybe we need to do a little more. But now, for right now, I hate to say it, they're the number two company. As much as I like to see them grow more and more and more and be more competitive, did what Triple H say? It's how he said it.
Right. Well, I like what Triple H said. I like conflict. I like when they fight, to be fair. So for the record, I like that Triple H said what he said too. I think that Tony Khan is in a spot where you have to be very clever how you answer those questions, so you don't come off looking like you're either just lying or yeah, we're number two.
No, you don't expect him to say that. Exactly. You don't come in and say number two. You're going to tout your strengths. And he didn't come off sounding like he was, I can't believe he said that about us. He tried to make it sound as professional as possible, but at the same time, there was this underlying, you can tell, kind of like, I can't believe he said that.
Right. Right, which is again why I like it when the companies take shots at each other. It's fun.
And AEW's graduated in Triple H's vocabulary. I was there for the Hall of Fame speech when Triple H turned to Billy Gunn and said, when the fans are starting to chant about AEW, and he said, Vince will put that little T-shirt company out of business, or buy that little T-shirt company out of business. So they've at least graduated to they're a secondary company.
That's a good way of looking at it too. Let's get into the show. But before we do, of course, I got to say to everyone one more time, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Shout out to everyone in the chat with Dylan Matthews, by the way. Hey, I don't stir any poop emojis. You know that. But shout out to Ricky and Tuck and Justine. I haven't seen a while. Justine Swerve Show, Corey Pride, Zook Enigma, and Tim Mickles, and everyone else who's with us today. And also, of course, I'd like to give a shout out to the lurkers out there. Of course, DraftKings, Huffman Elite Training, Beer Money, and Slim Majors getting in there. John Jordan at the very last second of the roll call. But let's get on with the show. We're going to talk about AEW for a little bit here. We start the show with Jericho and Takeshita versus Garcia and Guevara. And it was, I thought this was a fun match. I thought it was good times. I've been a fan of Daniel Garcia for a long time. I think he has a very bright future. And look, Justin, I know there's a lot of story to this match, but my guy, Daniel Garcia, got an aggressive dancing hip thrust over, baby.
That he did. It was a Jack Farmer wedding special. Yeah, I like the story. I like this. I like the story that's going on here with Jericho and the Jericho Appreciation Society. I appreciate it. I like these are the kind of stories and conflict and week to week cliffhangers of what's going to happen next. I think that this is what does keep people coming back. So and it also helps get rub and elevate other talents. So yeah, it was a good tag match. Overall, I just like the underlying story here. I don't really have much to critique on this.
Yeah, it was a. You got your hand up, Jimmy. What's up?
No, I agree with Justin that there isn't much to critique, but of course, me being the striped shirt guy, there's something that always it's an issue with AEW that I see too often. And yes, it was a fun match. I was enjoying it. I was into it. I liked the ending where Chris was conflicted. Do I cover him? He covers him, and you know what I mean. You can saw that he was kind of feeling bad about it and stuff like that. But the way they distracted the ref was nonsensical to me. Here we had Jericho. It was Garcia, right? Had Jericho in his finish.
I think he calls it the Dragon Slayer. It's like a sharpshooter / lion tamer kind of
right. Exactly. Yeah. So he had him in the hold, and then here comes Takeshita trying to make the save, and he was dragged out by Garcia, and they were fighting on the outside. So the two illegal guys are fighting on the outside. So why is the referee distracted by them when the legal guys are in the ring? Right. The distraction made me go, why is his back turned? And I get it. He's told to do it so they can do the bat shot by Callis. But at the same time, it's like, make the heat goes to the referee, goes to the wrong guy. That's the thing.
Right. No, I agree. Especially when you say it like that. Yeah. If the two non-legal people are doing something, who cares what they're doing? They can go do whatever they want. They're not even in the match. I do got to give a quick shout out to Jericho's jacket, which was a beauty this time around. But the thing that I like the story. I like it all. This is a Jack nitpick here. But Jericho has been a bad guy for 200 Dynamites now. Well, maybe 197 of them. So suddenly him feeling conflicted about this feels very insincere to me. Like, I wish they would have given him a little bit more time to make us think that he's had a change of heart and is a different guy, as opposed to I've cheated and taken advantage and used the numbers game to get my way in every situation for 197 Dynamites. But now, oh, what have I done? I've used, the bat that I'm famous for bringing to the ring. Again, it's a nitpick. I get what they're doing. I get where we're going. It's fine, but would have liked it if they teased it a little bit longer. later on, we get the man with the hardest nipples in the business, Magic Daddy, saying that next week there's going to be a mandatory JAS meeting. Justin, I thought JAS was over because of this match, but it looks like we're doing something else.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of, but I haven't. I'm interested. I'm kind of curious now. Like, what is it? Oh, and like you said, is Jericho really conflicted? Is he playing? So is he playing some mind games? So yeah, we'll see. If and again, fitting 200 Dynamite to start with Jericho, who's been a bedrock of Dynamite since the beginning.
Agreed.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a fun. The JAS and Jericho, whenever he does these kind of segments, I think a lot of people have done these kind of things, whether it be the Miz TV or a KO show or whatever. JAS, like business meeting named get-togethers in the ring, always seem Jericho's like the king of that kind of thing, and so they're always entertaining. They always deliver. So I do think next week it's going to be a very, at least, entertaining part of the show. So I'm excited for that. We did get we got a video package from Tony Khan. First, Tony Khan thanks us for the 200 Dynamite milestone. Thanks us for what's going on in sales for All In. And then we get a video package. And I know there's not a lot to necessarily take away from a video package, except, Jimmy, for me, it's our job. We come on here, and week in and week out, we sort of pick apart these shows and things like that. And sometimes I think we kind of take for granted all these great moments we get to see. And I think what AEW is very good at with these videos is it kind of reminds me, like, man, there have been a lot of really great times on AEW Dynamite. They did it when they ended the pandemic era too. They had another really fantastic video kind of looking back over the empty arena era. But I just want to get your thoughts of, like, man, you look back, there have been some really incredible moments here in AEW over the past 200 episodes.
There have been. The only critique I have of this whole thing is, yes, they started off the show hot with that tag match. Maybe Tony Khan should have started off the show in the ring to introduce this video package, because it was the 200th Dynamite and it's supposed to be a huge deal. You know what I mean? I think doing something like that, because Tony Khan doesn't appear in front of the audience very, very often at all.
Yeah.
So it makes it feel special, and let him make that presentation and thank the fans, thank the talent, thank the staff and everyone, and go to the video package. And then it feels like a big deal. Not that it didn't feel like a big deal, but it would have felt like the big deal it should have felt like.
Yeah, Jimmy, I agree. It would have been more gravitas if he kicks it off. It wouldn't have been special because he doesn't regularly appear out in front of. But I think there's a reason for that. I don't think he's comfortable out there on a mic. I think he prefers the pre-tape. Give him a few takes. Give him a prompter. I think that's where his comfort is. And so
I get that, but at the same time, it is the 200th episode and it's supposed to feel like a big deal, and your boss isn't even out there in front of the crowd.
Yeah, I agree with both points. I do think that he's probably more comfortable there. And I think that's why I noticed in the chat some people are talking about how much he's blinking. I think that's one of the reasons he's not blinking is anyone who's read a teleprompter and hasn't done it many times, you'll notice when you look back, your eyes are a little bit like, and the next thing that happens is because you're trying not to lose your space. So I know not everyone has teleprompters around, but try it sometime and watch yourself. You'll notice that you don't blink and your eyes are kind of weird because you're reading. But anyways, a lot of fun stuff there. Like I said, not really a whole lot to pull apart there. I did want to say in the chat, I think it was Corey Pride mentioned there's not enough MJF. I got a feeling, and we'll talk about that segment a little bit. It's because everything MJF did was bad. They're trying to make us forget about all this stuff MJF has done. Hard for you to like a guy when they're like, and here's that time he whipped Cody Rhodes with a weightlifting belt. We do get a Jack Perry promo here, and he calls out Jerry Lynn, and Jerry Lynn comes out and says he's not cleared to wrestle, but he knows a guy who is. And Justin, I don't know about you. I feel like you and I might be in the same boat here, but I popped so hard to hear RVD walking out to Walk again. I had heard rumblings online that he might be there, but when I heard the music, I was like, oh
yeah. I got to say this. I do like this about Tony Khan is he has no problem dropping money on music rights. And, so many of the ECW guys and, are attached to the mainstream alt rock or heavy metal music that they illegally used in the 90s that Paul Heyman got away with. But if you're gonna have RVD, obviously WWE wrote a themed for him that he uses when he's in WWE, but obviously AEW's not going to use that, and so what's the song that's synonymous? Well, it's hearing those opening riffs for that. If Dreamer was to show up, you have to use Alice in Chains' "Man in the Box." It's just what's synonymous with them. If you had Sandman, you'd have to use Metallica. And so it is kind of cool because you go back and if you watch WWE Network or you watch any of the DVDs, they've scrubbed over. I think it's funny. I forget. You go back and watch some old ECW stuff that's on WWE produced DVDs, and New Jack comes out, and they so they're not gonna let you hear Natural Born Killers, so they have like some generic house-made hip hop that's being played over top of it, or even Hogan, when Hogan comes out in WCW, and he's coming out to Voodoo Child, and they dub over that to just Hulk Hogan's Hulkamania music. So it is fun to hear that did really help up the moment for me. I have to agree. And I think quite frankly, again, given Tony's love and affinity for the original ECW, I'm kind of surprised it's took this long for us to go down the path of having a wrestler basically kind of running down ECW guys. I mean, maybe he wanted to do it earlier, but the pandemic stopped it. I don't know. But an RVD match would be fun. RVD's still in great shape. He's still over like Rover. All you got to point in case is this gimmick still over, and I'm kind of curious, does it end there, or are there more ECW toys out in the closet to come out and play?
Yeah, Jimmy, that's the question, and I like to make it known I love it when legends come back. Some people get all bummed out, like, I'll put on young guys. No, I love it when legends that I used to love come back. What are your thoughts on seeing RVD come back and obviously have a match, as he say is going to happen later for the FTW title? Are you excited to see RVD back? Do you think it's going to be good for Jack Perry? What are your thoughts?
For this story, I'm glad to see him back because it makes sense to have an ECW original, so to speak, come back and fight, let's say, for the honor of ECW, since Jack Perry's been running it down. And you got to give props to Jack Perry because he seems to have found a groove in this role as a heel and the anti-ECW guy. But if they do this right and they elevate Jack Perry through this by him going through some ECW legends, so to speak, working his way through slowly, RVD being there. Obviously, Jerry Lynn said tonight he can't go. We know that Taz is one that can't go, and working his way through some legendary ECW names. But then Hook comes back to just kind of like, gain his revenge for the ECW originals. I think there's a story being told there. I think this is just the beginning.
Yeah, I wonder what legends are available that they could use beyond RVD. I mean, I know there's some guys who are still going, but I think a lot of them are with Impact now. But I don't know. Maybe they've worked with Impact before.
I think anything other than WWE, I think anything's possible. Tony's Mr. Forbidden Door, right? So I think. And I'm basically just throwing names out there who I know still actively wrestle. Bully, Tommy, Dreamer. I saw Sandman within the last year. He was backstage when I worked a thing with Rhino, so that's Sandman and Rhino. I mean, Sandman's not gonna do a match, but he could come do his he could drink a beer, come through the crowd, and kendo stick somebody. He did it to me. He can do it to them.
Lucky you, I think.
A couple kendo shots and a cold beer poured down my crotch. So Sandman, Rhino, Bully, Tommy.
There's also some guys like I wonder if now my favorite was Lance Storm back in the day, but
I don't think Lance wrestles anymore.
I don't think he does anymore. But I wonder if he's in shape enough to give it one more go. I don't know. I don't know what his health situation's like.
Just incredible.
Yeah. But even Sandman, I have zero idea what his health situation's like. But I feel like with what he does, you could have a 3-minute he comes like hardcore match. He comes in with the kendo stick, hits Jack Perry a few times before Jack Perry does something cheap and rolls him up or something. You know what I mean? Because he's not the kind of guy where you need to have a high, fast-paced, tope suicida match. You could do just a bunch of little stuff.
Right.
I say little, but I'm talking about getting hit with a kendo stick. So that's very, it's bigger than I make it sound. Just little stuff, just hitting each other with weapons, you know.
They randomly just had Sabu a few months ago, so that would be kind of weird if he came back.
I mean, I don't know, you could. I mean, depending on what they're doing, but yeah, I think that'd be fun to see. I'd love to see that. Yeah, that should be fun. I think Jack Perry, I think is like Jimmy, like you mentioned, totally found a groove. And when he had that moment where he hid behind the little kid as he ran out, I thought, oh my God, that's brilliant. That is just brilliant. This guy.
Yeah, there you go.
It just totally awesome. So we then get to a triple threat match. Anything goes. Trent versus Jon Moxley versus Penta. Lots of hard-hitting moments. The shock here is that Trent gets the win. Post-match, Mox is choking out Trent, and the BCC shows up. They get intercepted by the Best Friends, and they challenge the BCC to a parking lot brawl on Rampage. I guess, Jimmy, I got two questions for you.
Okay.
One, aren't all triple threat matches anything goes, basically? And two, have you ever worked a match where there were thumbtacks or after a match with thumbtacks?
Yes. And you have to be very, very careful, especially if you're a referee counting anywhere around thumbtacks. It's my good. I to this day, I still can't fathom how these guys take those bumps and those thumbtacks. I mean, it's incredible. And the thing about this match, though, is it just felt like violence for the sake of violence to me. You know, like why were these three facing each other? What was the reason for it other than, hey, let's have an ODQ match on our 200th episode of?
They were, because the story was they were three originals that were all there for the very beginning.
Right. So that warranted an ODQ anything goes match. I don't know. I just the reasoning for the step. That's all.
No, I get it. This kind of blood and violence would be like, oh, we're at the end of a passionate blood feud. That I get. I mean, you know, I understood the putting the three together. You know, three originals, but I agree. I mean, to Trent was bleeding in his skull with some of the lacerations he had and everything. I mean, you know, it took 200 episodes. This is the biggest win Trent's had in his AEW career.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean, by far,
he earned it. He earned it.
But you said you had a second question as well.
No, those two. I guess one is that aren't all triple threat matches technically anything goes.
Well, they're technically, you can't get disqualified. There's no, count out on the ropes and stuff like that. And
I mean, if you can't get disqualified, doesn't that mean anything goes?
Pretty much.
I guess just one way of phrasing it is encouraging things happening versus the other one saying, we're not going to stop you. So yeah, it was that was kind of a surprise for me that Trent got the win. I don't like the thumbtack stuff, but I know some people do. So, and I know that that's a segment of the AEW fan base. So I don't get too caught up in whether or not they do it, but it's not my thing. That said, Justin, my question for you is, I'm not expecting one match to change a year's worth of expectations, but putting BCC versus Best Friends parking lot brawl match on Rampage, is that a step towards making Rampage relevant again?
No, I don't. I just think that they maybe needed something for Rampage, something just to stand out, something, just let's have a different segment, let's have a different fight that's not in the ring. Collision seems like they have kind of a booking plan with Collision. Collision seems pretty, they have a plan for that. So it's just kind of like almost like Rampage, like, all right, where else can we stick this thing at? I don't think. I mean, I think Rampage clearly is it's now the number 3 show for them. And again, they tape it right after they do Dynamite, so it's kind of like, you got to keep in mind you have the same audience that's gonna be watching that. So I don't think much of it.
Yeah. Beer Money says Jack needs Anna Jay with him. I think she's taken. Later on we get MJF coming out, and he tells us a story of kids bullying him and how protecting himself made him into a scumbag, but now he's our scumbag. And MJF asks Adam Cole to come out and says Adam Cole says how proud he is of Max and the man he's becoming. Max teases that he's not going to give Adam Cole the title shot he promised him, but he actually does, says it's going to be for the main event at All In. He signs it, and they hug. Backstage, the Kingdom sees Roderick Strong upset and twists the knife a little bit. Justin, I'm going to let you go ahead and just take it.
Well, I like MJF's backstory that he's given here. I like the little touch. I like the fact that Adam Cole came out, but he came out with no music. So I think if they would have played the music, everybody would have gotten so wrapped up in doing the music at the entrance, and we would have probably got detached from the emotion that MJF had been building up. So I thought a lot of things in this segment were pretty well executed and thought of. I gotta say, so this is gonna be the match. This is the main event. This is the title match at Wembley, which earlier this year when we knew they were doing the show, I had said so many times, okay, if MJF's still champion, MJF versus Adam Cole, I feel like is the biggest match organically they could do, aside from if we leaned into Punk versus the Elite stuff, the real life stuff. It was okay. MJF versus Adam Cole. MJF's your biggest heel. Adam Cole just organically feels like your most over babyface. So I was right in that prediction. I did not see it getting there this way. I assume, I'd be curious what you two think. I assume Max is going to string him along another week or two, and then he's going to kick him in the balls and oh, you dumbass, you believed all. You actually thought you were my friend. I assume, so you have some heat going into this. I assume that you want the heat going into this before the day of. You don't want to have them go in the day of and everybody think, oh, they're still friends, and then Max get devious during the, like, you know what I mean? I feel like, but then again, the damn show's already sold out, so maybe they figure. But I mean, I don't know. You still have to sell pay-per-views. So I don't know. I'm interested. I'm watching. This is one of the segments I look forward to the most each week, is what these two guys do, because they got me along now on the story. It's not what I would have thought it would have been, but that's okay. Go ahead and be unpredictable. So I'm watching closely with this. I'm really interested. And after Jimmy gives his thoughts, I have a MJF question I want to ask both of you in the audience.
Yeah, and Jimmy, first of all, there's some people in the chat saying that they think because we didn't see the contract that's going to be a non-title match or something. I don't think that's the case, because they said it was going to main event the show, and there's no way they're going to have a non-title match main event the show. But Jimmy, I get everything that Justin's saying. There needs to be some heat between them, but I also kind of think, one, this is just hot the way things are going. And I look at the Bloodline storyline, and so much of the way they're selling pay-per-views now in PLEs and WWE right now is you got to wait for that big show to see whether or not people break up or whether or not they stick around. Do you think these two stay friends until All In, or do you think we see a backstabbing happen before that?
I think you can see it happen. I think both ways would work, but one of the ways that it can work where you wait until the actual night of the show, and even the introductions, and MJF grabs the mic. Oh, by the way, Adam, I forgot to tell you, you should have read the contract, because, basically he handed him the contract. He signed it without reading it. Look at the stipulation in the contract, or just making stuff up or whatever, like whatever the case, one hand is tied behind your back or something like that, just something that puts Adam Cole at a disadvantage, or whatever the case may be. But I find it interesting that they're going in that direction. But you could also, reveal that the Dynamite before.
Right.
At the same time, but will it have the same effect? That's just how the crowd will react. But like Justin said, the show's already pretty much sold out, so you can wait till the night of to spring it on them, so to speak.
Yeah, I think they are so far knocking this out of the park in every way AEW can as far as this rivalry goes, Justin. But I want to hear your question for the committee here.
So given again Cody Rhodes stuff back in the front, like I said, with the documentary, Tony Khan's got the Elite sign now long term, just sticking around. Is there any possible way that Tony Khan has not re-signed MJF yet? MJF was very vocal that he's a free agent come 2024. but I'm sitting here watching all this. I'm sitting here thinking about all this, and okay, we signed the Elite and whatever. Like, there's no way, because there's no way in good business Tony Khan is letting MJF be his champion on this run. He's been champion for like over like 250 something days, having this great run, doing it. Like, there's no way that he's doing all this and still doesn't know if like MJF could be in the Royal Rumble next year. MJF could be at WrestleMania because if he has a resign and MJF actually leaving is still a real contractual possibility, you would then have your potentially longest running AEW World Champion ever, depending on when he drops this, then immediately go to the competition. Oh, and you're not secondary. So like, I'm just having to think like they must have, like, anytime MJF says like, oh, Benny Ward, he's signed, right? Tony's not giving him this live mic this many times. Tony's not letting him do all this without knowing I've already got ink to paper. He's already locked in for the next however many years. Do you agree, disagree? Chat, please. I'd love to hear what people think.
I think he's signed. I think they re-signed him, or at least extended him, or something along those lines. I think if Tony is smart, he's extending him and offering him gobs of money, because I have a feeling WWE will back up the Brinks truck for MJF once that time comes, if it still hasn't happened yet. And I agree with you, Justin. I think it'd be silly to keep the title on him until the end if that's his plan. But I also, just to play devil's advocate, I could imagine Tony Khan back in the day watching CM Punk in WWE walk away with the title and how cool that looked and how that went. And
I could imagine that's you'd be such a wrestling mark that you'd overlook good business practice. Oh, this guy, he's going to resign. He will. He's telling me he's going to. Like, unless MJF loses at Wembley and then all of a sudden disappears and isn't on TV. Now, then I would start to say, okay, he used MJF to help sell Wembley and help get Adam Cole even more over. And then if he disappears, then maybe there's a contract situation that is still playing out backstage. But I don't know. Jimmy, I mean, I'd have to think. Like, I mean, that Cody documentary even makes it out as like Cody's working without a contract, and Brandy even says, like, that you didn't renew the contract, and this is a competitive business. And then they cut to Bruce Pritchard, who's talking about mutual friends, and Cody calls him, and it's like, look, Bruce Pritchard worked with MJF and MLW. MJF has dropped Bruce Pritchard's name on AEW before in promos. Like, they have each other's phone numbers,
right?
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I know some people are talking about how MJF would be used in the WWE and watered down and stuff. Everything I've seen from MJF tells me that he'll be just fine. Even if they change how he has to act, he understands how to be entertaining. Sorry, Jimmy.
No. And like you said, and he's great in his promos, and maybe, like you said, if it were in WWE, he may have to change some of the verbiage, like some of the stuff he said in tonight's promo may not fly too well in the WWE world, but again, MJF can work around those issues. He's that good. And you talk about, well, he resigned. Tony Khan, I hope he's a smart enough businessman to know, because I don't know the man, a smart enough businessman to know that, by trying to re-sign him, allowing him to do what he wants to do as a way to get him to re-sign may not be a good business practice, if you know what I mean.
Well, and if Tony's smart, and I'm being very elementary here on my understanding of this, but I'm pretty sure if Tony gets him to sign an extension, or if MJF's contract with AEW truly is intact until the end of 2023, if in that time period, meaning now or sometime before or whatever, if he can get MJF to sign a new contract, that then always keeps MJF under an AEW. So in theory, WWE cannot contact MJF. In theory, they cannot make him an offer. But it's like, if Tony lets this deal expire, and maybe that's where MJF's smart. Maybe MJF says, no, I'm going to let this naturally expire. I'm going to get myself to the point to where WWE can call me and make me a formal offer. I want to see just how much do they see worth in me. So if Tony, hopefully Tony was able to, for his sake, to get MJF to just to sign a new deal, so that way he's never in a position to technically be allowed to hear an offer from WWE. Now, it's wrestling. Who's to say somebody doesn't pass a note when the teacher's not looking and say, but legally speaking, that would be the best play, is to get him to sign a new contract while you already have him under contract.
Yeah, I mean, he works in the NFL, or he has ties. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what he does in the NFL, so he understands that kind of thing.
He's like the director of analytics for.
Right. It kind of reminds me of the time when the four fellas from WCW went over to WWE, because they were technically. Long story short, I had a little hand in that, as a mutual friend of those four and myself called me one Sunday morning while I was at home and said, "Hey, I was speaking with some friends of mine," and he didn't mention them, but he said, "These four guys, I think you know who they are. They were just wondering if there would be any interest in them." So I gave him the mutual friend, Michael Hayes' number, and he called him. He told him, "Let's get in contact." So there was kind of like a backhanded way of getting into signing, Eddie, Chris, Dean, and Perry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have a feeling, I know they can't tamper with contracts, but I don't think it's that hard for someone to say, "Hey, Cody, we sure would love to pay Max X amount of money." And then it'd be a terrible if you told one of Max's friends that we were thinking that, and then however they have to get around it. But
Max, but look, it goes back to what I said earlier. Max grew up watching WWE. Max has a WWE microphone or whatever at his bar mitzvah that he's shown when he was that's what you're competing with. Is you're competing with, come put on the pinstripes, come to New York, come be a Yankee.
Yep.
Yep. Come join the legends, come join the legends of Murderers Row that's been here. Come join the lineage that is Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold and The Rock and John Cena and Roman Reigns. You can be a part of that list. That's what you're fighting with. That's where you have to add the extra zeros if you're Tony Khan to retain.
And on top of that, I mean, you can get plugged into so many different entertainment avenues now, especially with Endeavor. And then, I mean, they're one of the CEOs is a Hollywood agent.
Exactly. Could you imagine? I mean, MJF would be, MJF could relieve the Miz of some of the media duties. MJF could go on the Today Show and he'd kill it. I mean,
100%.
MJF could have a reality show following. I mean,
So I think it's possible that they can sign him, but I agree with you. They better I would do it sooner rather than later, and I would offer him a boatload of money.
Yep.
Speaking of a boatload of money, a couple guys that just got some. The Elite have a match with Jarrett Lethal and Satnam Singh. It was kind of a silly one. Best spot in the match, I thought, was no one wanting to tag in when Satnam was in the match. Lots of outside shenanigans here, but it was fun. And at the end, they let everyone know that they are going to be staying with AEW. But Jimmy, they also say, heck, maybe even Collision.
Yeah, I know they planted a seed there, and you know what? Everybody's talking about this. Did they sign? Is there an issue here? In the contract, was it stated something with them and CM Punk and all the whole thing that's going on? If they were smart and did business the right way, they would work around their dispute, because there is money to be made here. And I talked earlier in this thing about them growing their audience. This is a way they could do it. Because you have a guy, and this is not a knock on the Kenny Omegas and the Hangman Pages and the Bucks or anything like that, but you got a name like CM Punk who's recognized worldwide, not just to the wrestling community. And if you can get that out there, people might get invested and go, "Wait, what's going on here?" So there is money to be made there if these guys would do business.
I agree with everything Jimmy said, and I'll just extend it to this. They have the Wembley show on August 27th, and then a week later, whatever they're doing, All Out again in Chicago, and then 2-3 weeks after that, they're doing their Arthur Ashe stadium show in Queens, right? Well, obviously Chicago for obvious reasons, but if you needed something with quick turnaround to sell out. Not sell out, but to draw serious money at either one of their shows with a very quick turnaround, all it would take is one Collision a week or two prior to either of those two shows, All Out or the Arthur Ashe. All it would take is one collision, or one Dynamite, one collision, or maybe on Dynamite the Elite says, I've been getting kind of bored on Saturday. I need some weekend plans. Maybe let's go to Collision this weekend. Let's see. Let's check that out. And you heard tonight, even when they said Collision, everyone went ooh. Everybody knew what they meant. The AEW audience, they're all plugged into this stuff, right? I mean, they were all chanting RVD. They all read the internet. Yeah, I got my pen out, my pencil out. So if they just said, I'm kind of bored, let's go see what's going on Saturdays. First off, they'd had the best Collision ratings viewership up to that date.
Yeah.
And you don't have to even do much. It would just simply be music can just hit, stare downs can happen. You could even save the promo for one of the stadium shows where they actually start shit talking, and then that could then extend to the payoff of a match at the Arthur Ashe. Like, you could get a few things out of it if you need it in two big shows, all just by putting them in the same building together and letting people think, ooh, what's real, what's not, what's a shoot, what's a work, are they friends, are they not? So if they need something and they don't have a lot of time to build stories, go with the story that's been going on for the last year on the internet and behind the scenes.
I love that. And, speaking of easy, you could even just have them, as you say, they say they're bored on Saturdays. Don't even hit the music. You like the callbacks to old stuff, have them come through the crowd like Scott Hall did and do something, I don't know. But come on. That'd be so, like, you can imagine the excitement of one of their musics, or Kenny Omega says, I'm going to have a match on Collision, and he's having his match against, it could be a nobody, just so he gets to win. And then after the match, you hear CM Punk's music hit. The place would explode. Just know that they're going to have a face-to-face. That's the money. That's the money match right there.
Just saying.
We got what's really one of my favorite parts of the night. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say, but Mogul Embassy. We get AR Fox cutting a promo, and then they go visit the Buddy Wayne Academy where Nick Wayne is training, and they beat the crap out of him and then call Darby Allin from Nick Wayne's phone to talk trash. Jimmy, I am a huge Mogul Embassy fan, and I think they've got gold with this group, and I think they got gold with this storyline.
No, it was a nice little story. I like the way it was told. Again, the one little thing that wasn't needed in this situation was, because we had it earlier in the night, was the blood, to leave him bloody. That wasn't necessary. It was an added piece that really didn't need to be done. But other than that, it's a great story being told, and the way they did it and make him, call Darby Allin so that they can talk to him and all that sort of stuff. There is, again, this is something that's getting people invested, and it's a story. Stories and characters get people invested, and that's what we're getting here.
Yeah. I think, and Justin, you can be the deciding factor here, the split the decision. This is one of the few times I felt like the blood was good, because I felt like they were really invading Nick Wayne's home and really hurting him.
Well, I agree that this was heavy. And I'm not going to say heavy's bad. This was just heavy. It made you feel things. I agree, Jack. The blood. I agree with you. I agree. The blood was because this felt so like Dateline-ish. Like they just broke into this dude's house, property, and they do the, and then the call it. But I also agree with Jimmy that I became a little desensitized in my 2 hours tonight to blood, because I saw the ridiculous amount of blood that it did in the match. That, as Jimmy was even asking, why did it have to be that for this? We're celebrating the originals of Dynamite. Why did it have to have, why did it have to be a crazy ass? So I do agree that had I not seen any blood anywhere else on the show, that would have amplified it even more in this segment.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, does Moxley, Trent, and Penta need blood? No, they're all three of them are pretty well, especially at least Penta and Moxley, are pretty well established to the AEW audience. Nick could use the elevation here, so let him have the blood. And this might be another example again of AEW. They got a lot going on. Again, this is where quality control, communication. Hey, this is where Tony needs to know and step in and say, look, we're really banking on, Jimmy, what's the saying? Red equals green. We're really banking on this blood is going to help move this story along and really move us to a good payoff eventually for Nick. So no other blood tonight. Let's really make. But again, Tony might not see it that way. Or again, Tony being an ECW guy, he wants as much blood as I don't know. But I agree with what both of you said to an extent. But overall, this was heavy, and this made you go. This made the shoulders rise up a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I watching this, I think this is going to be very good for everyone involved. I've talked about how much I'm a big fan of Swerve for a while. I think that Swerve, him fitting in with the Mogul Embassy is going great. I thought AR Fox's promo was great. I've always thought he was an entertaining in the ring wrestler, but like this made me go, oh, this guy's someone to fear. And I love that when they showed up, they said, "Hey, nerds." I don't know why that popped me a little bit, but
they're emerging, and that's what's happening here. They're connecting with the audience as heels. Let's put it that way. And for those people who are there going, "Come on, Jimmy got hit over the head with the thing. Of course he's going to bleed." Yes, I understand that, but like Justin said, it's almost desensitized after you see guys going through tables, thumbtacks. All the weapons and garbage cans that went on earlier. So yeah, that's all.
I have a feeling Mogul Embassy will start to be very similar to a Judgment Day in the sense that they were kind of like this group that was there, but I think as they get going, they're going to start really becoming a force in AEW. At least I hope so, because I'm a big fan of them. We got Aussie Open versus Commander and Vikingo for the Ring of Honor titles. And this was Jimmy, this was just a high-flying, fun matchup. It reminded me very much of the cruiserweight matches in the old Thunder day or Nitro days, where maybe probably not a lot of stakes. Don't think a lot of people thought Aussie Open was going to lose, but high-flying, big moves, fun to watch, and good before we go to the main event.
That's all it was. It was it's terrible that it felt like a placeholder on a show that was titled as a big deal, like the 200th episode. That's the only thing. And of course, you got the big guys like Aussie Open that can do a lot of stuff and hang with the Lucha guys. So it was a fun, entertaining match. It just, I still feel bad saying this, but did it belong on AEW Dynamite? The 200. Yes, we know it's owned by the same owner. ROH is owned by the same, but it was AEW night, and you have talent that you could have used.
Mm-hmm. I still think owning the ROH brand is a waste of money. I don't know. But aside from it being an ROH branded match, the damn Commander spot where he jumps off the top, then jumps on one of the opponents, and then transitions into the Canadian Destroyer. I mean, the crowd went nuts, and I mean, again, I've never seen that before. So props to that.
Yeah, very exciting guys to watch. I will say, if you see them live, they're both wildly entertaining live for sure. But it is fun. Not a lot to take away from it. I'd put Aussie Open on Dynamite a lot more. Ring of Honor stuff aside, just as a team, I think they're great. I want to talk about this real quick. I know we're going a little long here, but we never talk about Collision, obviously, because it's on Saturday and it's, we're all busy that day, but we got a little video about what's coming up on Collision, and they're talking about CM Punk having the quote real world's title. Speculation says that will probably bleed into Dynamite at some point in the title they have over there. But Justin, how do you feel if you've been following Collision, or how do you feel about the idea of them saying the real world's title is on Collision?
I'm conflicted because I see pros and cons. The pros are, Punk did have the title when he then disappeared, injury and backstage craziness, right? So on that respect, that makes sense. But then the flip side of that is, like Thunder Rosa was champion. She got injured, and they don't call her the real women's. So there's a little bit of inconsistency there. I also wonder, is it because since Punk never got beat, is this a clever way for him to create his Rogue World title? And now we can kind of what you have in WWE, which is you can have 2 world titles. You can have one for one show, one for another one. So is it a marketing thing of we're not going to have the world. We're not going to have MJF doing two separate storylines on So I also don't know. And again, I'm being honest here. Is Punk a heel or face? Saying I'm the real world champ and spray painting a title, traditionally in wrestling, that's a heel thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I see other things that he's doing that he's baby facing. So I don't. So, or is he? Do they just accept that Punk is just a shade of gray because that is truly who he is? He is a shade of gray with the wrestling business. I'm kind of I'm torn. There's pros and cons.
I don't know if there's a way to say the grayest of grays, but he is the grayest of grays. Jimmy, what are your thoughts? I will say, in general, I don't like multiple world titles unless a company is completely separated. Like, I think it's fine to have the NXT title and the Universal title. Personally, not a fan of the extra world title because I feel like you can't say you're the best if there is two of them, unless it's like an actual like. These two things never touch. But how do you think? I mean, this is obviously a storyline as well. What do you think about, or just the idea of them doing this 2 world title thing?
I'm okay with it as long as the company itself, like, for example, whoever the authority figure is, do they have a general manager or anything, or just Tony Khan, does not recognize that championship that CM Punk has. And CM Punk can carry it all he wants with the X spray painted on it and a whole bit and say, I am the real world champion. You are not recognized as a world champion by this company. So that title you're holding is false, or whatever the case may be. In that regard, I could see it happening. And then eventually down the line, look, if you want to be recognized as a world champion, you have to earn a title shot against our real world champion. And then you can build towards that. And maybe, I finally got a shot at the world championship. And if he beats me, then I will relinquish this title. He can have my X.
Yep. He can have my X.
He
can have my X.
Yeah. All my exes live in Texas.
Yes.
Now, again, going back to what I was booking earlier with MJF, if, again, MJF's future is still in question with the company, legit, then maybe there's a long play that Tony Khan's playing for it through the remainder of 2023. We got to have CM Punk's world title with, this is assuming that MJF retains against Adam Cole at Wembley. Maybe there's something there and Punk squashes MJF or something if MJF is on the way out. So, I mean, I am keeping that in the back of my mind that maybe there's a long play here of how do we get the current world champion MJF who might be leaving. How do we do this as gracefully as possible for AEW, and maybe it's in this fashion potentially.
I'll confess that there's a little part of me, and even if we take with all of the stuff that happened, even if we say CM Punk is completely 100% not responsible for anything that's ever happened, there's a part of me that's a bit like, so he built up to him getting the title, he got it, immediately left, built up to him getting the title, got it, immediately left, and now he's back, and I'd be like, there's a little part of me that's got a little bit of CM Punk fatigue, if that makes like, kind of want to see him do some other stuff for a little bit, but to you guys' point, we'll have to see how it goes. And I also like to maintain the right to go, this turned out great, I was wrong the other day. So
and it still could, but you would not be the first person to say that CM Punk is exhausting. So
I'll say though, he probably business wise makes a lot of sense to be champion, and he always entertains me when he's out there. There's just part of me, it's like, okay, we're doing it again. Let's try it one more time. Third time's a charm. But speaking of third time's a charm, Tony Storm puts the title on the line against Hikaru Shida. They have a little video package earlier in the night to hype up the fight. Story of the match is the kendo stick gets slid in. Shida gets it and then use it to take out the Outcast. She gets spray painted, but fights through it, is able to get the win, and we have a new AEW World Champion, Hikaru Shida. Jimmy Korderas. Kind of cool to see the women get a main event and have a big title change happen on a Dynamite.
No, absolutely. It's very cool. And, again, happening on the 200th Dynamite, as a matter of fact. I'm a little surprised that it didn't get the time I thought it would get. But at the same time, the women really worked hard here and tried to get this match over, and they did a good job. They got the crowd invested. Again, if I have one little critique, I would have preferred that yes, I get it. Shida got sprayed and she fought through it and the whole bit. but I would have preferred if they didn't kill the spray paint angle yet.
Yeah.
You know, maybe go for the spray paint. She either ducks it, puts her hands up, or something like that, and you know. But I didn't like the fact that she fought through it that easily and then rolled up Toni Storm for the finish. I'm not upset that she won the title. I'm just think it could have been done differently. That's all.
Jimmy hates his roll-ups. And Justin, I'd like your thoughts, but I'd also like you to respond to Corey Pride with the super chat who says, Toni Storm should have won. She's a star. Sheeta ain't.
No disrespect to Sheeta, but I somewhat agree. I understand the commentary is selling this, that Sheeta, she never got to defend the title. She was a pandemic champion. Obviously, nobody booked and planned for the pandemic. So I get, in a way, good on Tony to kind of do right by his loyal soldiers. Okay, to a point, I get that. That is good. That's good morale. That's good relations with talent. But I ask, does Sheeta move the needle? Does advertising saying we're coming to your town and our AEW Women's Champion Hikaru Shida is defending, does that move the needle? I don't know. I don't have any facts I don't have any actual things in front of me to say that. So I don't know, but I do question it, and I question it just based on how much of the crowd popping when she comes out tonight, right? Mm-hmm. Her and Tony worked hard tonight. They really did, and it took a while to get the crowd really into this, but they did work hard. There's irony here. Last week, the famous book the women's division better sign. And then so here we put them in the main event. There's also some weird irony that it's the 200 Dynamite, and the women are notorious to getting the 9:30 time slot, and you actually give them a minute. So there's some irony here. I will say on critique here, they had a cool angle, a close up. Sheeta, basically out of the guardrail, mounts on top of Tony. It looks like she's going to do the 10 punch. She only gets like 3 or 4 in. But the 3 or 4, they looked just soft as marshmallows. Again, I don't know. We got to remind her and everybody, this is a visual TV. The camera's right there. You got to make this look better.
Yeah. You
don't have to potato. There's a thing called a working punch. You don't have to potato her, but you need to make it look better. You need to lay it in and make it look better.
Absolutely.
And then finally, my critique would be, as Jimmy was talking about the finish and this and that, the ref distractions are certainly not their strength, the company's AEW. But and part of what doesn't help this is that they have so many factions, so many groups, and they insist on always having the extra parties out there. So you have Saraya and you have Ruby out there. So it almost becomes like, okay, we put the match together, and it becomes almost like an obligation. Well, Saraya and Ruby out there, we have to somehow null and void them, and so then we start coming up with these overly complex, spray. It took who was the referee? Was it Paul Turner? No.
I think it was Paul Turner.
Yes,
Paul
Turner. It was Paul.
In the history of refereeing, if a referee wants to discard the damn weapon, kick or slide the damn thing out of the ring. He acted like this was like the kendo stick that belonged to Jesus and had to go to a museum. He picked this thing up. He walked it over to the ropes. Come here, stagehand. Come here, Justin Roberts. Take this. No. Just kick the damn thing out of the ring, like you would if and so that the ref distraction again.
Yeah, Paul Turner was kind of put in a tough spot there because it was slid in right in front of him, and I think he's kind of put in that tough spot where he knows what needs to happen, but he saw it, and now he's in that.
Well, and by the way, I think prior to him throwing the kendo stick out, the only use of the kendo stick was the babyface used it and hit the illegal non-participants of the match. Right. So it's not like it was even in threat of being used. Whatever. Good. Congrats, Sheeta. Hard worker. Both ladies worked hard. But I we'll see. Let me see. I don't know if she moves the needle though. Let's book the women's division better. I don't know if she moves the needle. I hope I'm wrong. Prove me wrong.
I want to see a sign in the audience is book ref distractions better.
I felt bad for Paul Turner. He was in a like I said, because he what he should have I think the real thing he should have done is go, oh, get this out of here and grab it and throw it out. But there was a moment where he's like, kind of like, what are you doing, guys?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like,
right.
But he had to, because I think he was just in a tough spot. Like without blowing the spot. Actually, Jimmy, I guess if you were still there, if you were at WWE or whatever, and that happened to you, and you inadvertently got put in that spot, would they say, dude, you got to get rid of the stick and they got to figure something out? Or would they say, you got to figure out a way to make it look like it's, you know what I mean? Like, what would they want you to do?
It depends on who the producer / agent is. And of course, in WWE land, the referee is the authority figure. So if you see somebody in the ring with that thing, you get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know, even unless it's like the Eddie Guerrero situation with the lie, cheat, and steal stuff, where he used to come in with the chair, you know what I mean, and pass it off to the heel when the referee's back was turned, and the referee would turn around and see the heel with the chair, you know, and something like that. But it just, the referee distraction, and I get it. They're doing what they're told to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they have to realize at some point that the heat is going to like I said earlier, to the wrong person. The heat should not go on the referee.
Right. Because, and I know, like Wayne is mentioning in the chat here that Aubrey missed the bat earlier on. Mm-hmm. I think it's one thing was like, I can kind of tell, you can see it out of the corner of your eye, but this was literally, he was like, right, like he was facing her as she slid it in and was looking down at it. And it's one thing to be like, yeah, obviously they probably could have caught that out of the corner of their eye, but this was like literally in a situation. I don't think it was his fault. I mean, that's just the way he was. It was just done right in front of him. What's he supposed to do?
They would honestly be better. I'm serious. They would be better off. It would take the rate of burying the referees way down. Tony Khan would be better off. Just, again, ode to ECW. Just say that, like, we don't really care about DQs or countouts. It's kind of like how ECW rules are. There was the match was not going to end in DQ. There was nothing more anti-hardcore than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just say that's the vibe we're going for. And if you start the show and just tell me that, you don't even have to work to do these ref distraction spots, because if the ref can't DQ, then just let outside interference. It's almost like that's just the situation. That's just what it is. At least the ref's not going to get buried. The ref's just going to be like, well, it's the effing Wild West. I'm only one sheriff, you know.
Right.
I don't know. And then I think about AEW. You know, they've had some cameos and one-offs by some of the greatest refs ever, like Mike Chioda. Why the hell is Chioda not there still? Did Chioda, did he push back and say, hey, here's A, B, and C, what you guys need to change? And did Tony not want to hear that? I don't know. I always wonder, like, why are guys like that? You know, Jimmy's a free agent. Jimmy's floating out here. Jimmy gives a good consulting advice every single week. Like, why? If you're not going to better traditional pro wrestling rules and refereeing, then just get rid of it. And again, have AEW rules, which is anything goes.
Right. Yeah. I think, especially in this case, it was I'm usually pretty lenient on referees, but that one was a pretty tough pill to swallow there. I do think I will dissent here a little bit. I think Hikaru Shida was the right person to win, though. I get that Toni Storm is the star. She's probably a bigger star, probably going to move the needle more. But I also think, and I know you guys will say that you got to get fans outside of the current audience, but I think she's got a little bit of a Johnny Gargano and NXT vibe, where like she's one of ours, so to speak, in AEW, where I think it's something that the fans of AEW like to see her win and like to see her that. I do think that she should have been getting some wins on TV a little bit before she came back and got this win. I know people say she got a win on Rampage, but like it should be happening a bit more often.
Can you send her out and do a promo? Can she talk you into the building?
Right.
Again, can she move? Can she sell you tickets?
I mean, that's why I say I get what you're saying, but I think, and this is one of those things where, as a fan of AEW, if you see she's on a poster, I think it'll get you in the seats. And now, again, I agree that she's not going to go on the Today Show anytime soon. She's not going to be that kind of person, but I think sometimes you got to give something to the fans to make them happy. Like, this is one of our people.
But I get that, but they've been catering to this hardcore audience with almost everything they do. They have to start trying to expand their horizons and try to draw in some new viewers. And if you continue to cater to this one group of audience, you're not going to do that.
I will double my comment with, I think Toni Storm kind of ran her course. I don't really know who else would be challenging her that would be a interesting new challenger.
But why would you not, Saraya is obviously medically cleared.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't need to work a match every week, but like, again, she's somebody who there was some buzz when she came over because she is who she is previously from WWE. And she's, as I said, she's had a Hollywood movie produced by The Rock made about her. Why would you not put the title on her? And again, she doesn't have to wrestle every week, but just having her appear, having her kind of do the Roman Reigns strategy of where she's the all-powerful title holder and you build to her matches, but she can move the needle. She's somebody, again, she's got a Hollywood, I just, this is where I think you get into a danger of, you have somebody who runs a company who loves pro wrestling so much. Well, that's great, but can you get out of that bubble? Can you get out of that lane of, I love Hikaru Shida, I love what she does, I love her style, whatever. I love how loyal she's been to me. But it's like, is she helping your year-over-year growth? I don't know.
Well, let me ask, who do you guys think, let's say Toni Storm won, who do you think should challenge for the belt at All In?
Why not a Britt Baker?
Have we seen that already though? I mean, I feel like
she
I feel like Dolph Ziggler getting a shot again.
No, but she connects with the audience.
Yeah, Jack, name me a woman in AEW who gets a bigger reaction as she comes out.
I mean, you're right. I've seen it before.
Let's see it again.
Not like Dolph. It's like Brock Lesnar challenging Roman Reigns. It's like, yeah, it's the biggest match, but
it box office drew every time.
Right.
When Britt's music hits, people react.
Mm-hmm.
And they like the, and again, she's got a story. She's got a story, and she still works. She is a dentist, and everybody knows she's with Adam Cole. So and he's the top babyface. So it's kind of like, oh, look, it's the power babyface couple. And
right.
She's an original. She was there from the, like, I don't know. I don't know. At first, when AEW started, they didn't have a lot of women because so many of the best talented women in the wrestling business were gobbled up by WWE. Britt was one of the few that had not gotten signed by WWE who was out there, so it was smart for AEW to grab her. And then AEW then WWE made women available through all the cuts that would happen through pandemic and whatever. So it was like, all right, AEW has the taking here to start to, and they acquired some of them, and it was a big deal. We acquired Ruby.
Mm-hmm.
We got the Rancid music. Tony loves to pay for the music, and I feel like we quickly ran through Ruby's star power. Then we had Tony, ran through that. Then Saraya's here, I don't know. I just feel like we just run through the new toys and we just discard the new toys over to the play box.
Well, I liked it, but I get what you guys are saying. So that does it for this week's episode of AEW Dynamite. But before we go, of course, everyone in the chat, let me know what you guys thought of the show overall, or any comments you guys had. And while you guys do that, I'm going to go around the horn. And Jimmy, what were your final thoughts on this week's episode, and where can the world find you online?
I thought for the most part, it was a fun episode of thing, a little too much repetitiveness, especially with the ref distractions happening far too often tonight. But to me, the only thing is, it didn't feel like a special episode of Dynamite. Like Dynamite, the 200th episode of Dynamite felt like it should have been made me go, wow, that was awesome. And it just didn't feel that way. Was I entertained at that? Yeah, for the most part I was. But at the same time, it didn't feel as special as I thought it should have felt. As far as where you can reach me, obviously here on Wednesday nights, like we are here right now, and on Monday nights, Triple J as well, after Raw. And this Saturday after SummerSlam, it'll be Triple J back at it again. And on Wednesdays also drops the Reffing It Up podcast with myself and my brother in stripes, Brian Hepner, and the glue that holds it all together, RJ. And this week we talked with Tasha Steeles. We had a lot of fun chatting with her, and it's a great episode. So I invite you all to tune in. And of course, on all my social media platforms, you can catch me doing my Ref and Rant from Monday to Friday. And as I always say, they're critiques not to tear down, but to tighten screws that I think need to be tightened.
At first, you said Titan Screws. I thought you were saying the name. That's my new wrestling name. I think Titan Screws.
Titan Screws.
Oh, wow.
Titan.
Yes. I was like, ooh.
The next generation's Terra Ryzen.
There you go.
Yeah, by the way, everyone follow RJ. He's a good guy and super supportive of everyone else. But Justin, where can the world find you and all the stuff you're working on? And what did you think of the show overall?
Overall, I mean, it was fun. There was parts that was fun. There were, again, I'm cliffhanging on certain things as I talked about here. And then there were other things that I'm just kind of like, didn't necessarily feel like a big show. At Justin LaBar across the socials, and I'll be Friday morning Spar with LaBar, Sirius XM Radio, and then Saturday night's on Right for Fighting. It'll be the three of us for what's going to be probably a very big SummerSlam. So please, if you're listening to this live or after the fact, clear your schedule. Saturday. It's Saturday night. Stay up late with us and be part of it live.
There you go.
For Triple J talking SummerSlam, hottest night in the summer.
It's going to be awesome. I can't wait for it. And I want to shout out everyone. Thanks so much. Fun review says Swerve Show. We got Manish, we got Max, we got Ricky, KOD, Danny, and everyone else, Droy, Jay, Huffman. And I'll appreciate all of you guys coming through. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe.
Leave the 5 stars between now and then. And Saturday, Jack will read all the 5 stars that come through between now and then. That's how we'll start the show.
Yes, if you leave a 5-star review, I'm reading it on the air on Saturday. And you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. I'm going to be just living here at Wrestling Inc. this week. I'm going to be on the SmackDown after show. I'm going to be on the SummerSlam after show with you two. And look, SummerSlam, it's one of the biggest shows of the year. I have a feeling this one's going to be very special. And then after SummerSlam, you can be a part of the biggest party of the summer, the Triple J after show on Wrestling Inc. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see you guys all there. I think that does it for us. And until next time, follow at Wrestling Inc. But these three, we'll see you